with a melody. You surround me with a song of deliverance from my enemies, till all my fears have gone. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. From my mother's womb, you have chosen me. Love has called my name. I've been born again to a family. I am a child of God. I've been born again to a family. I am a child of God. I'm no longer to a fantasy. I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God.
You're welcome, you're welcome. This is impromptu. I know it wasn't really planned for, but it's going to be quite brief. I just want to share some things real quickly.
I am surrounded
Just waiting for a few more people to come in and then we'll start. I know it's not the usual time for my broadcast, but I just feel inspired to share this while it's still fresh, and then maybe some other time we will look at it in details, but at least let me just share some of my thoughts here. So you're all welcome. God bless you all. God bless you all.
from our bondage. We're the sons and the daughters. Let us sing our freedom.
All right, so Oluwa, I see that you're here. Welcome. God bless you, Akintola. I hope you will call briefly, because all this side talk is not is not enough. I think you should call in as well. Call in when it's time and express your points. Let's hear. Let's make valid points. We'll listen to them, but make them in light of the context of the discussion. Let's not compare apples and oranges. Let's do proper comparisons, okay? So you're all welcome, everyone. God bless you. God bless you.
You split the sea so I could walk right through it. My fears are drowned in perfect love. You rescued me and I will stand and sing. I am a child of God. Yeah. You split the sea so I could walk right through. So I could walk right through my fears in perfect love. You rescued me and I will stand and sing. I am a child of God. Yes, I am. I am a child of God. I am a child of God. child of God, full of faith. Yes, I am a child of God. I am a child of God.
Okay. I think I'll just go ahead to start because it's supposed to be a brief one. I don't intend for this to be long, as there are other pressing commitments, but I'll just let me just set some things going here so that I have all my systems available. Okay. Happening here. Stream. Yes. Right. So the number will be on the screen. I'll put that. That's the number you're going to be seeing on the screen to call. I'll put that on the screen shortly. Just give me a while. I'm just trying to fix some things. So yeah. So that's the number to call if you want to call. So greetings, everyone of you God's people. My name is Ojegiwamo. You can also call me the Watchman. Like I said, this is not my normal time for broadcast, but I just want to briefly share this. Hopefully this should not be more than 30 minutes, and I'm hoping that we can learn a few things from this. Now, what I want to talk about today is, I think, is the misconception regarding miracles, in my estimation, and how a lot of Christians misunderstand why and how God performs miracles, why he does so. So I just want to share that with God's people, because it seems like a lot of people don't tend to grasp and understand why God does the things he does, especially when it comes to miracles. So I want to share that. And I've titled this broadcast, Does God Bypass Regulatory Laws to Perform Miracles? And I want to use the case of, the trending case of Suleiman and the later Benson Idahosa as the examples of what I'll be sharing. And I want us to consider the claims in light of the scriptures. So like I said, this is going to be a brief broadcast, so I don't want it to go too long, so I'm just going to go straight to the point. But before I do so, I think I'll just like to pray as well and thank God, commit everything to God's hands. So Father Lord, I thank you for today. Thank you for your people. Thank you for this time to share. You said we should exhort one another, and Father, that's what I am doing by your grace. I pray that you give me the grace to speak the words of wisdom, and I pray that it will be edifying to the listeners, and I pray that whoever will be contributing to will be will speak based on your wisdom, and that we'll all learn and be edified from this. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. All right, so I had done a broadcast on Saturday, I think, with regards to Suleiman's recent accession. I'm sure many of us are very familiar with the trending testimony of the one of his sons that was whisked from the toilet in Germany to the toilet in France. Okay, and so I don't need to play the video again because I'm sure many of us are familiar with the story. All right, and the second thing I want to consider is another claim someone made in an attempt to somehow justify why that could be possible, by saying that there was a brother as well who traveled to the UK and the US without any valid documents, no papers, no passport, no visa, no boarding pass. Well, I don't know about the boarding pass, but no passport, no visa, no ticket at all. And he went to the UK and the US. And what is so sad is that there are Christians that believe these kinds of nonsense. I call them nonsense, and I'll tell you why. And I want to first address the Suleiman's claims. But today, the focal point of this brief broadcast wouldn't be whether or not Suleiman's claims are true. Personally, I don't believe that they are true, and I gave my reasons in the last broadcast. So the issue is whether God will bypass human regulatory laws to perform miracles. And I want us to look at it from a broad perspective. So the answer is not going to be a yes or no thing, because my goal in this broadcast is to communicate understanding and discernment, and not just place God's people into some kind of robotic yes or no answer. All right. So why am I doing this broadcast? Because like I said, it's fresh. I feel inspired to do it, and I just want to draw God's people's attention to the misconceptions for many Christians. All right. So with Suleiman's testimony, it was like, oh, this guy needed to go to France and he didn't have documents. He told God, and God said, just go. He went to the airport, and he was about to be checked. It was almost a stunt for him to go through security. And then God told him to go to the hospital. Sorry, not the hospital, to the toilet. As he entered the toilet, he said, pray. He was praying, speaking in tongues. And before he knew it, God, transported him like Philip to France, the French airport. That's all we heard about the testimony. We did not get to know the details. Okay, but there are personal reasons why I believe that testimony is fraudulent, is a lie, and I've shared that before. I might share that again. And then the second one is about the brother who traveled with the late Archbishop Benson Idahosa without any documents. God also performed another miracle by making him bypass all security agents, and somehow all the documents he had was the Archbishop saying, he's with me. That's all the Archbishop told them, all through security, and then he passed all security, and that's how he was able to get to the UK and the US. And there are Christians supporting these kinds of testimonies with a very misguided understanding of scriptures, where it says with God all things are possible, and they've made reference to Philip as an example, and even making reference to Paul and Silas being jailed as the example. But unfortunately, these brethren are comparing apples and oranges. Their comparisons do not fit the scenario we are discussing. All right. So the first thing I want to ask is, why do Christians make these comparisons, and why are they easily fooled by many of these self-aggrandizing testimonies? If you ask me, because I believe that these Christians don't yet understand the reasons why God performs miracles, and the purpose, the intent. If they did, they will not make the kind of statements they make. Somebody said, you remind me of that vision that Peter had in the book of Acts, when God told him to eat, and he said it was unlawful for him to eat, and God told him, why didn't God follow the Jewish laws? Oh, that you see, that's why I said, Jedediah, you keep making very irrelevant comparisons, always comparing apples and oranges. Christ is the Lord of the Sabbath. All right. He said man was made, the Sabbath was made for man. Man wasn't made for the Sabbath. I'm just starting this anyway. Maybe if you allow me, go a little bit, and then I can tell you when to call. All right. So the comparison is irrelevant. Okay. We're talking about regulatory laws that God himself has ordained through humans to keep the society safe and govern them. So let me share first. Let's put this thing in context, and then you can respond. All right. So we're not talking about dietary laws or laws that the Bible says could never make things perfect, because people were still under the bondage of such laws. Don't eat, don't touch, don't eat pork. So if Jesus Christ chooses to bypass that because he saw the ultimate goal, the ultimate good, where salvation was to come through the conscience of man, through Christ, by purifying the conscience, where it is by the Spirit of God we are led, not by touch this or don't do that. If God chose to bypass his own laws, then You can't you can't compare that to regulatory security laws that God himself has ordained to govern the society. Those are two different things. Those are two different things. Yes, and even if Peter wasn't being, even if it wasn't being about Jesus Christ being the Lord of the Sabbath, that was just an example I gave. I also explained that in the light of the new covenant, that these things were to be done away with because Christ himself was going to shed his blood, and his blood was to overthrow the old covenant and institute the new. So he was already bringing that into play. So we don't stop comparing apples and oranges. We're not talking about God's old laws that is fading away, that he's doing away with. We're talking about established government, human laws. That's why I said you keep comparing apples and oranges. We're going to deal with that. You need to show me examples of those from the scriptures. So let's look at some of these issues here. So the reason why many of these Christians believe testimonies like that of like you heard from Suleiman and like what they said about Idahosa as well, is because they don't. I believe they don't really understand why God performs miracles. You see, God doesn't just perform miracles for showmanship, or he doesn't just do it in a purposeless manner just because he wants to show that he performs miracles. There's always a reason, and that reason must bring glory to him. All right. So all right, so you're welcome, Larry. You're here. God bless you. You're welcome. I see Chelsea FC as well. All right, does this explain why God was silent when some regulatory law of men are pure evil and only? Anyway, I don't really understand that question. Maybe I'll look at that later. So the question is, why does God perform miracles? Let's first see that. The first reason is to validate a message and bring glory to his name. All right. These miracles are not performed for the self-aggrandizing testimonies of the ministers. The end goal of that miracle has to bring glory to God. It has to point the unbelievers or people to see the majesty of God, not the person. That is the first thing we would have in mind. So when you begin to hear some of these testimonies, that at the end of the day is just to show that this person is connected with God. This person has a special connection with God. Or, oh, this is my son. This thing happened to him. You know, it shows you this is special connection with God. You already know that there's something is wrong. You understand? I can tell you that. You already know that something is wrong. So because many of these Christians don't understand the reason why God does these things, that's why they just believe anything. It doesn't matter how ludicrous it is. They just say, hey, with God all things are possible. Yes, with God all things are possible, but God himself is a God of integrity. He's a just God. All right, so let's first look at the Philip scenario, and I want you to see some consistency here because it's very important we address it, and I wanted us to do that real quick. I want us to look at the Philip scenario because when people make reference to Philip and they make reference to the Paul and Silas in prison, well, I don't know. Okay, let me pick this call. I've not even really started, but I'll pick this call. Yeah, hello. Yeah, everybody can hear you. You're live. Yep. Okay. Okay. Of course. I mean, what you're saying. Yeah, but you see, you can't. You see, you yeah, but you see, we are discussing this. Oh, then what you're saying is very evident, Jedediah. What you're saying is self-evident. It's not. You don't even need rocket science to agree that God supersedes, and if He chooses to, based on exceptional circumstances, He could choose to bypass human laws to do something. But it is the context, the spirit, and the circumstance that will help us validate or examine the claims. And the claims we are examining are in light of the testimony from Suleiman and about Benson Idahosa. So we're not just speaking about what you're saying generally. Nobody's going to argue with that because God is sovereign. There's a specific context that has that inspired these broadcasts because of the claims. When people are trying to use the argument you're making, they are not necessarily saying that in a general sense. They are trying to subtly use it to defend Suleiman's testimony, or like the other one that guy gave about Benson Idahosa. And that is where the problem is. So that is why I said we should stop. Hold on. Wow. I just said that we can't hear. Hold on. Can you speak? Oh my gosh. I'm just it's as though I've just been speaking to myself. Thank you, Sister Ada, for letting us know why. Okay, wait, hold on. This mixer, I'm always forgetting. Okay, speak now.
Yeah. So you see, the thing is.
So you have to start again because I was just talking to myself and they couldn't
so you
hear
want me
you.
to say everything I said before again?
You could just briefly. I mean, does it want to?
It's fine. Yeah, it's fine. No, it's good that you say I should say it again. Yeah. So basically, my point was that yes, it is the norm that God wants us to obey the laws of the land. Yeah, that's what God wants us to do. That is the norm, and God usually will not break the laws of the land. Usually, that's true. However, there are exceptions. As in, it's possible for God to break for God to break human laws in order to fulfill His own purpose and will. One thing we have to understand is that these human laws here, there are a lot of human laws, not all human laws, but there are a lot of human laws that came from man and not from God. And people make laws as well for selfish reasons. You know, every government is evil. That's the truth.
Yeah. You said that, and we've understood that. And my response to you, which I didn't hear when you said that, was that is self-evident. Nobody's going to argue with that because God is sovereign. But like I pointed out, and I'll say again, when the people who come in to make this kind of argument you're making, they don't just say that generally. They use that to try to justify very fictitious and very ludicrous testimonies. So let me give you an example. So that you can understand where I'm coming from. You can really appreciate this. Now, it is like a person saying, when they hear Suleiman's testimony or what that guy said about Benson Idahosa, who had somebody with him who went to the UK and US without any visa, no passport, no documents whatsoever, and all his identity and passport and visa to get to this country was Idahosa just telling them he is with me. Okay, now what are you going to say if such person says, yes, with God all things are possible? So I'm not going to be arguing with the argument that with God all things are possible, which is what you're saying here, or in this case. I will be arguing with the specific context in which they are applying that scripture wrongly, and that is the issue we are dealing with here. So what you have said, Jedediah, I agree. God is sovereign. If for some reason there's some kind of unjust law, let's say it is something that is now forcing Christians to accept maybe same-sex marriage or something, and they put them.
It doesn't even have to be unjust. But yeah, carry on.
The reason why it has to be unjust is what you see. The context now is what we would have to be looking at from scriptures. Yes, it may not be unjust, but even if it bypasses that law, I can assure you that the end goal and effect of that law is that the authorities will glorify God. If the end goal of his bypassing a good human authoritative law leaves no explanation in the minds of the authorities, it would paint a very bad image, and it would dent the integrity of God. And I'm going to show you practical examples. I will show you practical examples from the Bible. So yes, if God will bypass that human law, let me give you an example.
But you know, before you give an example, but you do know that God can do something and people think it's bad, but God knows it's not bad. So
of course we know that, but we all have common sense, because God, the Bible also says that God was the one who instituted these laws, and we're going to go there through this government as well. For the good laws are instituted by God. It's biblical. So
we're not. Okay, carry on.
Yeah, and then we're going to go. That's why I said it's too early. Maybe let me go into the broadcast a little bit and address certain things. Then maybe if you want to call back, because
let me just quickly say,
I'm not doubting that God is sovereign and he can bypass.
The key here is you don't want to be under spiritual and you don't want to be over spiritual. There has to be balance. Do you see what I mean? Like this miracle of a thing, yeah, there are people abusing it. For example, do you know that if I send money by mistake to someone now, and that person needed money, and then that person is now claiming that God blessed him or her with a miracle money? No, that wasn't a miracle money.
Yeah, but somebody's going to tell you that with God all things are possible.
I didn't mean to send you that. That's not a miracle. That was not from God.
Yeah, but the person saying that you don't know in the spirit.
Too far. Yeah, so I do agree that people take these things too far.
Yes, so what I'm saying that Jedediah, let us always consider an argument with regards to the specific context of a point. So that is where I've had an issue with you in time past. In this case, if you notice, I'm not a cessationist.
Yeah.
I have never said it is impossible for God to move somebody from one place to another like the way Suleiman described. I've never said that. The issue is not in whether God can whisk someone away. So if somebody's coming to quote Philip, the person will just be quoting amiss, because that is not the point. The point is that when we look at the surrounding context of Suleiman's testimony, it is fraudulent. There's a problem with it. It is like somebody saying now, coming to tell me that, oh well, you see, Jedediah, that wife that you married, you see, with God nothing is impossible. That wife that you married, God revealed to me, a prophet, that she's not your wife. Somewhere in the spirit she's mine. So God has told me that you should divorce her and I should take her as my wife. Then you just hand that to her and say, well, God can bypass his own laws. He can bypass all human laws. He can bypass laws, and well, God, your will be done. Then just nicely hand your wife to the prophet. That's the point I'm trying to say.
But that clearly contradicts
to you, but there are many ministers and people
that's clearly written in the Bible. I'm talking about all the human laws.
It is also written that you should be subject to government authorities. It is written in the Bible, and that is the point I'm also trying to tell you too.
You know now, yeah, we have lockdown in the UK. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That's a government rule for a good purpose. Yeah. But it's possible that God might want to do something now. Yeah. And he chooses to bypass that law.
Yes, but if he does it, the people need to see the essence, and it will magnify his power and give glory to him. It should not be something that we paint him as a fraudulent God. Don't you get it?
Yeah, but the thing is, I get what you're saying, that if he does this, the people need to understand, blah blah. But my point here is, it's possible for God to even do something.
When we go to possibilities, we are just going to be going with vagaries, and
people don't see sense in it.
I disagree. I disagree
at that point. Because here is the thing.
I don't agree with you.
Did the disciples see sense in Jesus going to the cross to die? They didn't.
That's not see. The point is not seeing sense. The point is that God gave them a revelation of that. He gave them they eventually understood what the purpose was for, and that's why they could preach the gospel and teach us what it was for.
Later on they did. But my point is,
but you see, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether it's now or later. The point is that the essence is that ultimately the people should see God's glory in that thing.
Okay, if you say ultimately, I agree. But my point is, people might not get it immediately. But ultimately, I agree.
Oh, Jedediah, this is the problem I have with you. Why are we being so petty? Is it now? They didn't get it now, but they got it later. The issue is that God is not purposeless. All right. When He does a thing,
other testimony, let's come back to the story that you were talking about. So, because I haven't heard that one. So basically, the person traveled with Idahosa, and Idahosa just said that, oh, he's with me, and they just allowed the person to travel.
Yes.
With him without any documents.
Yes.
Okay. So, is that possible? Yes. Is it likely? No.
Jedediah, that's what I'm saying. That okay, so if you want to go with your stretch, then almost any ludicrous thing is possible. Yes, anything is possible. Is it possible for me?
To be honest, because these governments, I hope you do know that they do alter human laws whenever there is a need to at times. That this is how we even the governments here, they will say that this is how we normally do things, but no, don't worry, you can, that they will break that law just temporarily for one person. That happens in this world. It can't happen.
Give us practical examples, please. Give us practical examples. To give us practical examples, you see, I am not talking about where, for example, in the Constitution, let's say the president has right to pardon, or let's say, okay, let me give you an example. Like in the customs of the Jews, they had the right to release one prisoner, right? And they chose Barabbas instead of Jesus. So we're not talking about those exceptional rules where somebody, it is provided for within the constitutional law to say, okay, this person at a certain time has the discretion to pardon this or do this. We are talking about a law that governs everybody, which nobody is above. So let's be very clear about what we're dealing with here.
But in this immigration rule, let's say they were going to the UK, and the UK government agrees that yes, you can come without anything. The person can actually travel. My point is, it is possible. You cannot rule it out.
You create very fictitious scenarios that are just based on human. The UK government will not say, "Oh yeah, just come." Go through. See, let me tell you, Jedediah, stop talking like this. Let me address that. Stop talking like this, because
you people
you
never
just make us look very stupid,
coming.
and you make people just mock us. Let me tell you why. Wait, hold on. Let me tell you why the UK government will not do that.
Oh my God!
Listen.
You can't say what someone can do and what someone cannot do.
Can you listen, Jedediah? This is the problem I have with you. Because the UK government understands that the person has to go through security, and the security is beyond even the UK government.
That's not true. Not true.
Let me ask you a question. So what you're saying is that a person who, let's assume, you see how you're reasoning. This is why atheists and people mock us. I want to bring your reasoning to the fore.
The government controls their country. They set the laws.
Wait, hold on. Let's say a person is traveling from America to the UK. And the UK government just says, oh, so in America, come. No need for visa, no need for passport, no need for anything. And then you think because of that, the American security agent will let the person pass from America to the UK because the Prime Minister said come. That's what I'm trying to explain to you.
No,
people don't just make decisions like that. You can't make arbitrary decisions like that. Sorry?
If you're coming from one country to the UK, the UK government can make an agreement with that country and say that, okay, so is coming. please let them pass through.
Okay.
There will be agreement.
See, I disagree. You're telling a fictitious story. You're creating a fictitious scenario. Okay, give me an example of when this has happened.
What I'm telling you is you're respecting these human laws too much.
No, Jedediah, stop giving fictitious
you see these human laws. You see these human laws, yeah? They were made by humans.
Jedediah, before you go to another story, don't jump from one thing to another. Wait, hold on. Don't jump from one thing to another. Give me an example of where this example you've given has happened.
Huh?
Give me an example of where this scenario you've painted has happened, where a president just said somebody should come, and the person went through.
Example.
Let me finish. And the person went through immigration, security, no ticket, no visa, no arrangements from the consular, they just allow. Give me an example of where that happened.
Before I give an example, this is what I'm trying to tell you.
No, don't tell me what you're trying to tell me. Give me an example.
No, I want to clearly explain what I'm saying, so that you get it. Because it's not hard, man. This is what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that if someone owns something, they can do whatever they want.
The government doesn't own immigration. Prime Minister Boris Johnson is not above the law. How do you live in this country now? Stop talking like this. I beg.
The authorities of this country, they said the laws they said the immigration laws.
They want him to come here, they will give him the necessary documents. For goodness sake, Jedediah, you live abroad. How are you talking like this?
But emergencies happen. I hope you know. I hope you know this. Emergencies happen, and they can say, okay, this is what we want done ASAP.
Even when there was an emergency because of shortage of passports, where people had to go to Nigeria, they still need to obtain some kind of documents. That's the point. Don't you just get it?
Not necessarily. It doesn't have to exactly happen like that. They can contact the other government and make arrangements.
They can contact the government and make arrangements.
They are controlled by human. They can do whatever they like. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Each government can do whatever they like. They can allow whoever they want into their country.
Jedediah, you're frustrating the discussion. And first of all, I asked you to give me an example where this has happened. You're now going to this. If they can do this, you're going to the realms of speculations. I don't want to deal with you.
Speculations.
Okay, tell me where it has happened.
You're treating these laws as if they're static laws.
Forget about whether they change. Jedediah.
Laws are not static.
Jedediah, you see, when we go through this back and forth, it's frustrating for me because you jump from one thing to another. You cannot create a scenario based on the fictitious imagination of your minds, and then when one should ask you and say, okay, give us an example of when it happens, you're going to divert and go somewhere else. Give us an example of where in modern day society a president have said, this person is visiting, let him come because I said so, without a valid passport or document, no visa, no ticket. Please tell me how.
The passport. What do you think is the passport here? If someone says, what do you think is the purpose of the passport?
Oh God.
The purpose of the passport is to basically signify that yes, it's like an entry permit.
It's your identity. It's not your entry permit. It's your identification. And that identification
in this context.
Your passport is not your security permit, it's your identification.
No, I said entry permit.
It is not your entry permit.
Okay, if I'm going from here to France, I only need my passport.
Your visa is your entry permit, and we are talking in the context of a person that did not have document. Jedediah, that's why I said keep the conversation.
The entry documents into a country varies. It's not static.
But we are having a discussion in the light of a specific. Oh God, see. That is why I said if a person is a British citizen, we are talking about a different case. The person is a British citizen, and if you're coming from America, you do not need any permit. In this case, we are discussing
what I'm trying to tell you is that human laws are not fixed.
That is irrelevant, Jedediah. You're just bringing very irrelevant connections. It's not about whether they are fixed. The issue is that you bring up a specific point, address that specific point. You are claiming, the Boris Johnson or the French government can just say, Olowale from Nigeria, come to France.
They can.
Even if you don't have document, just because the French government has said so, it is possible. You give a lot of fictitious stories, but you cannot.
Usually, you will be asked to go and get a visa, and they will give it to you. Yeah. But what I'm telling you is that it is possible, though. Let's say there's not enough time for them to process the visa. It is possible for them to just tell you that come. It's their country; they can do whatever they want.
Jediah, I'm ashamed that for someone who lives in the UK, I'm sorry to say,
how this world works.
I will not spare you in this regard. I am very much ashamed.
The government too much.
Hold on.
You trust the government too much.
I am very much ashamed.
The government has the power to do whatever they like.
I am very much ashamed that for someone as I thought was as enlightened and who lives in the UK, say what you're saying.
I hope you know that
you are wrong. Government does not have the right to do whatever they want. That it's against their laws. It is wrong.
Who says the laws? Who says the laws?
It is their laws, but as long as that laws.
Who says the laws?
Oh God! As long as those laws. Listen. Who says the laws? They said the laws. Listen.
Just answer.
I just told you. Listen.
Who says the laws?
Listen. The government has its legislative arms and they set the laws. And
so can they change the laws? Can they change the laws?
Can I talk?
Can they change the laws?
Can I talk, please? Listen.
Can they change the laws?
You asked me one question. Let me answer the question, and I would talk. You see,
God, man.
I would answer your question, but you don't want me to answer one question and jump into another question. Listen. Talk like an enlightened person. You are really disappointing me. Number one, listen.
Yeah.
Before their regulatory laws, let me educate you. Unfortunately, I have to educate you at this point. Before their regulatory laws like that, it passes through a process, a legislative body, and when that law is established, no one person, not even the prime minister, not anybody, is above that law. If they have to ratify or change that law, it will still go through a process. So why can't you understand? These are very basic, rudimentary things.
So you've agreed that the laws can be changed.
Of course, but that is very irrelevant. It's not relevant to what we are discussing.
That's what I'm trying to tell you, that you cannot say something cannot happen.
I did not say no. You see, you keep comparing apples.
You said it cannot happen.
Jediah, you just keep making points that are amiss. You're comparing apples and oranges. I am not saying laws cannot be changed. But what the scenario you're bringing here is that, the prime minister just woke up one day above the existing laws. He circumvents it and just says, prime minister come from Nigeria. That is what you're saying.
Obviously, they will go through the right process. I'm not saying that they won't.
Okay, so they will go through the right process to change the law just because they want someone to come in.
But my point is, a country can decide to let someone in. They can decide to let anybody they want.
That is not the issue. You're missing the issue. They can, but they will go through the process, their international laws. Jedediah, are you aware? You see, that's why I said when you talk like this, you disappoint me.
You do know that there are exceptions whereby they cannot afford to go through normal processes. There are exceptions in this world. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
That is not the point, but the examples you're giving are miss. Do you realize that there are international laws? Do you recognize why people have international passports? That is because even governments.
I know there are international.
Before you quickly interrupt me, I'm trying to let you understand something. That when a president or a country wants to make a decision regarding someone coming in internationally, it is not just about their laws of the land. They have to follow international procedures and protocols. Because do you know whether that person is at risk? Do you know whether that person is a terrorist? How will the government, the UK government, look before the civilized world if they hear, Boris Johnson liked this person because he's the president. He just said, Olowale from Nigeria, come in, there's no time, you don't need visa. That's why I'm saying that you're disappointing me. You're not talking like someone, you're not speaking like someone that understands how, I don't know, it's disappointing.
Yes, there's a normal process for everything, but what I'm trying to tell you is, governments don't always follow normal processes. That's my point.
If they don't follow those normal processes, there will be provision. That's the point you're trying to miss. There will be provision for those exclusions in the law. Are you aware of that? Are you aware of that?
What do you mean by provision?
What I mean is that the prime minister cannot just jump up tomorrow without any provision and arbitrarily say, Oluwole, come from Nigeria. I want to change this law. It doesn't work that way. What is so hard to understand about that, Jedediah? What's hard to understand about that?
Yeah, but to say that something that a country cannot do, you can't say that a country cannot do something when you're not a country. That's my point.
No. You see, you keep attacking strawman and you keep making statements that are miss and you keep twisting what I'm saying. I didn't say a country cannot do something. You're making vague statements that I have not said.
You're saying that UK government will not allow someone
because I am aware that these governments are aware of the regulatory laws and they follow those laws. The international laws. Government will not do stupid things just because they want to prove that they are in government. It doesn't work that way. There are international laws that govern things. So if somebody wants to travel, the government will make sure the person is meeting international standards. Do I have to teach you? Do I have to let you know these things, Jedediah?
No, man. No.
Do I have to tell you these things? So
this is not true, man. So you're telling me all these governments always follow due processes?
Jedediah, give me an example.
There are exceptional cases.
And if they don't follow processes like that, and I'm saying that there are exceptions in the constitution or in their law that gives them that leeway to exercise that discretion. That's all I'm saying. Now I've asked you a simple question. Give me an example of what you gave where a prime minister or a president invited someone.
By the way, I'm not saying that it's the prime minister that will do it.
It doesn't matter. You said
it doesn't matter who does it.
That example.
But my point is
that example.
My point is a country can allow whoever they want into their country, even if the person has no papers. It's possible. That's what I'm saying.
It's not possible. Sorry.
It's possible.
It is not possible. You see, you say that.
We have all sorts of stuff of that. It's possible.
Unfortunately, you say that out of gross ignorance. And the reason why I say that because you believe that the laws of a country is just determined by a few set of people that can override those laws whenever they wish. That's why you're talking like this. If you have an understanding that it doesn't work that way, you won't say what you're saying.
They're run by dictatorship.
I need to continue with this podcast. I need to continue the podcast. You know, let me continue. You have taken so much time.
I think you need to do more research.
I intended that this would be 30 minutes. You're bringing very irrelevant comparisons that
I'll let you continue anyways. I'll let you continue.
You cannot substantiate the examples you're giving. You just make
this is not true, man.
This can happen. That can happen. This can happen. This can happen. Even the president can send a snake through the waters to go and
I didn't say that.
Joe Biden. It can happen. So with you're just saying fictitious things that can happen, but you cannot practicalize them, and that is why when I asked you to give me an example
you find a lot of examples online.
I asked you to give me an example of where a government sent somebody to come into their country.
Laws are not even static. They change.
Forget about static. Stop detracting and evading the question I'm asking you. I asked you to give me an example of when a government had requested someone should come into the country without papers.
I'll let you continue with the broadcast.
Can you give me an example?
You can't say a government can never do something.
Can you give me an example? It's a simple question before I continue. Can you give me an example?
That's just not true, man.
Can you give me an example, Jedediah, before I continue? Can you give me an example?
Go search for your life. You will see several examples of
you're not serious.
Countries not following normal processes.
You're not serious. Okay, you know what? Thanks. Let me continue.
I'll let you continue, but what you said is not true, man. Everyone knows that.
Anyway, so brethren, sorry, the call came in, and I think
not everyone, but I would expect But anyways, I'll let you continue anyway.
Thanks.
But you'll find examples of governments not following.
Don't give me examples. The point is, don't tell me to go search. If you want to give an example of something, please have it ready. Okay? No. Okay, Jedediah, I'm going to remember. Viewers, please. This is our brother Jedediah. I'm not going to let him off the hook. I don't want to set. No, stop. Hold on.
We'll talk about this in our own time.
Stop asking me to go search for fairy tale stories, okay? You have the stories.
It's not fairy tale.
Okay, wait. It's simple. And I'm asking the audience here because I'm going to remind them This is Jedediah. He said online, Jedediah, please go find an example of where a government has asked a person to come into the country without documents just because they were the government in power.
What I'm saying is that, yes, it is not the norm and it is highly unlikely, but you cannot say that it cannot happen.
Then you're going to the realms of speculations and fictitious stories. I don't have time for that, okay? I don't have time for that. If you're giving any examples, you need to practicalize it, okay? You have to practicalize it.
And by the way, even if it hasn't happened before, the fact that something hasn't happened before does not mean that it cannot happen.
My brother, please stop talking ignorantly. There are laws and there are protocols, okay? If they are going to break, they wouldn't break that except there's provision in the law to give them those discretionary powers. I'm not going to say more than that. It's fine. We're going to go on and on. This call, see, it's like someone already said 46 minutes has passed. A 30 minutes broadcast.
Let me just let you carry on.
Let me go on. So,
don't worry, you can carry on.
Yeah, thanks. Wow. I didn't even intend that, So, yeah, he can't buttress his point. I mean, you're giving an example because anybody can just come here to say all things are possible. It is possible for the government to, this government, but Johnson can just go to, America and slap, Donald Trump. And then, because it's the government, nothing will happen. All things are possible. We can't just talk like that. And surprisingly, why I said that, this is the brother that also lives in the UK here. You would expect that he's widely traveled. You can't just say that a prime minister, just because he's a prime minister or he's a government he has powers, he will just tell somebody, come from South America, come and visit our country. Without visa, without passport, without ticket, without documents, nothing. What about the airlines? The airlines, who's going to pay for the airlines? You see, so when you talk like this, you now begin to ask yourself that, so for somebody who travels regularly, you wouldn't expect this kind of statement from a person, because first of all, when you get to the airport, you have to have bought your ticket. Is it the government telling you to come from Nigeria that is going to pay for your ticket? In this testimony we are giving, the person who followed Archbishop Idahosa did not have ticket, did not have passport, did not have any documents at all. And all Idahosa told security agents, according to the testimony, was, he's with me. He's with me. And the gates, security agents just, let the gates open. He's with you, Papa. Coming to our borders. How silly! How do people think in this day and age? This is why unbelievers mock Christians. They mock Christians, and you hear somebody saying, it's possible. Of course, it's possible. Everything is possible. But what we're saying that will not happen. Is it possible for Buhari to be the president of the United States tomorrow? Yes, it's possible. Who knows, something may just go wrong with the people in the United States and they will just decide that, we want Buhari to be the president. Yes, it's possible. But you see, giving fictitious examples or stories and then hiding under the disguise of possibility is meaningless. We have to be very practical. You see what I'm saying? It has to be practical. Anyway, so this came on the back of this idea that, why are we talking about Suleiman and it's possible and not possible and all that. But you see, like I said, the first thing I want to say is that God see, that's why I have this call. I have to take this call now. I'll be back. Just hold on.
Calling my Nigerian line inside. And don't worry about it. That one can be taken.
Yeah, sorry about that. That was a family call, a very important call, and I was hoping that the broadcast would be over by now, but I'm just starting. Anyway, let me just try to go through it. And please, if you want to call, it has to be very brief. And in as much as I want to give people the time to call, but I just want us to try to be as brief as possible. Now, God doesn't perform miracles for showmanship or for nothing, if you understand. Now, when God does that, it's there to validate a message, his message, and to glorify his name. It's never for the self-aggrandizing testimony of the minister to say, so at the end of the day, when people hear the testimony, to be like, man, that man is Nababao, he's very great, or he's connected. When we hear this self-aggrandizing testimony about Suleiman, or this one about Idahosa, you see that it has no purpose. It has no end goal. The end goal is more of, this man is a great man of God, and that's where it ends. So that is one of the ways you begin to suspect that these testimonies are very fictitious. And something else you also see is that they are very vague. They have no specificity. If you tell the person, now call that person, let's look for him, this Suleiman's son, tell him to detail the story of how it happened when he got to the airport, where he had reached before he entered the toilet, what part of the toilet he came out from in France, when he got to France, who did he meet. Come on, then you begin to see that there's a problem. I am just to give the benefit of doubt, but if we probe that Suleiman's testimony, you're going to find that the so-called son that gave that testimony is lying. I have so many reasons to believe that he's lying. And what would be the motive? There are many people that worship these their papas and mamas that don't mind telling lies or giving false testimonies just to make their papa and demigod pastor feel good, to see that, oh, I'm connected with Papa. If Papa hears that I'm his son and this happened to me, he can give this testimony to show that he's a great man of God. But I challenge Suleiman, get this person who gave this testimony, let him give it, and you will see that there's a problem. This other brother that gave the testimony about Idahosa's boy that went to UK and the US, went to UK and the US without visa, without ticket, without passport. The US that we know, is it the same United States that I know very well, that I've gone to back and forth, and I know the scrutiny and the investigation and the immigration and the UK here that I live, that they will just enter the country and say, wait, brethren, I want us to tell this story, okay? I want us to tell the story so that you see why unbelievers laugh at us as Christians sometimes, and you see why it is so annoying the way a lot of Christians think. Okay, so this guy, in amidst where they are looking for wanted people, terrorists and all that, this guy was traveling with the Archbishop Idahosa. And when he got to, let's first start with Nigeria. When he got to the place to first check the passports and all, and said, who is this guy? Idahosa just told them, he's with me. Oh, okay. Like I said, let's say Nigeria is corrupt, so anything can happen. They paid their way or something of that. Okay. Out of corruption, they let him through. Okay. When Idahosa got to the boarding counter, the place where they are supposed to present the boarding pass, the passport, and the ticket before they enter the plane, what did the Archbishop tell the Oyibo people? What did the Archbishop tell the security agents at the counter there? He's with me. Oh, where's the ticket of this gentleman? Idahosa told them, don't worry, he's with me. Okay, where's his passport? Don't worry, he's with me. Where's his boarding? Of course, without the ticket, you don't get a boarding pass. He's with me. So I want you to see the stupidity of the reasoning here. Will the airline not be so I don't even know where to start from. The airline is there to make money. The airline is just you understand? So the airline is seeing Idahosa with a person who has not bought a ticket to enter their plane, and they've allowed that person enter the plane, not to even talk about the security issues. First of all, they will allow that person enter the airline. Jim Wong, hello, you're welcome. They will let the person enter the plane without a ticket. Who pays for it? What will they explain to their bosses in front? They are losing money. How did they get the seat there? That is fraud. Because first of all, number one, what these people giving this testimony have not taken into is that they are saying that God is encouraging fraud. Because Idahosa is telling, according to the story, is telling the airline people there that, don't worry, this guy doesn't have a ticket, he doesn't have a passport, but let him enter your plane because he's with me. He hasn't bought a legitimate ticket to fly. That means they are saying that God encouraged Idahosa to perpetrate fraud with the airline agency. You see, these people don't, that you can, are you seeing where this thing can have, are you seeing the bigger picture of this thing? But you see, all these people just want to, because it's a miracle. With God all things are possible. It's a miracle. They're not deep in their thinking. They are so shallow. And that's why atheists and unbelievers laugh at us. You can even see, just even at the boarding place of the Nigerian, before they even depart from the airport, there's already a problem. There's already a problem. Because according to this testimony, the airline, you know, he say, what if it also went through a private jet? You always give you know, excuses and all that. Whether you're going through a private jet, you will still go through some form of security. You still go through some form of security. They don't just allow people into the plane without going through security. Jedi, you don't know that. You won't also begin to, you know, anyway, let's leave that. You know, so how did he pass that? The airline, you know, they allowed him without paying for a ticket, without a valid ticket. You first have to ask that question. That's number one, fraud. They allowed. Then number two, he arrives in the UK. And then you know what happens now? He goes through his, first of all, I want to assume that this person didn't have luggage. Because first of all, you know how it is. When you get to the airport, you check in your luggage. And they have to see your passports and your documents. So let's assume he even had just a suitcase. So when he gets to the airport in UK or America, and then he's now at their borders, at their desk of immigration, and they ask him for his passport and his visa from Nigeria to come into the US. You know, the answer is just going to tell the consular there, the immigration desk officer, don't worry, he's with me. And you know what? They will just open the gates for him to enter the UK. I'm sorry to say, but can you see how stupid? This is outright stupidity. It does not work that way. But there are a lot of people who will tell you that you are an unbeliever. With God, all things are possible, because they don't really understand how the laws work and how God works. Do you know if the person is wanted? Does America know whether he's a criminal? How do they test this thing if they don't have an identity? How do they know who this person is without an identity? Oh, just by the answer saying, he is with me, he's my son. You see, so when we begin to test some of these testimonies, we see how fictitious and fraudulent they are. Because at the end goal of such testimonies is to let you see how great Papa Idahosa is. How he commands so much authority that even the US department opens the gates for him into the country with anybody he likes, as long as Idahosa just says, he's with me. Doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. In the specific context of what we are dealing with, this person had no visa, no ticket, no passport. And all that was needed to go through was, he's with me. Now, let me quickly read certain scriptures. I want us to first quickly address the Philip situation before I come back to this. All right? Because the argument here is that, but if Philip was weak now, if they could do it with Philip, why is Suleiman's testimony not true? But again, like I said, these people fail to get the point. They fail to get the point. I am not contesting whether such miracles can happen, but the circumstance and setting to break regulatory laws that have been stipulated for the good and security of the society is extremely questionable. Extremely questionable. And I'll tell you why. So let's see. I want us to see, let's look at the Philip situation. Let me see if I can find that. Okay, I had that up. Just give me one moment. Happened to all my pages. I close it. Okay, so okay. All right, so let's look at scriptures so that before these people start quoting verses out of context, and a lot of Christians are known to be specialists when it comes to doing things like that. They always quote scriptures out of context. You know the situation. I'm going to be very brief with this one. You know, Philip had preached to, God told him to join himself with a chariot with the Ethiopian eunuch and all that, and the Ethiopian eunuch did not know what he was reading. So Philip went there to explain the scriptures to him, and because of that, the man gave he believed, gave his life to Christ, and he was baptized. So you see again, when I say that when God does certain things, it is always for his glory. There's always a purpose for that thing, to validate the gospel of Christ and to bring glory to his name. All right? So if I'm reading from verse 34, it says, and the eunuch answered Philip, please tell me, of whom does this prophet say this, of himself, of someone else? So then Philip opened his mouth, and beginning from this scripture, he preached Jesus to him. You see the essence? And 37, it says, then 36 says, as they went along their way, they saw some water, and the eunuch said, look, water, what prevents me from being baptized? And Philip said, if you believe with your heart, you may. And he answered, I believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. And he ordered the chariot to stop, and they both went down to the water, Philip as well as the eunuch, and he baptized him. When they came out of the water, now listen to this, when they came out from the water, Philip, the Spirit of the Lord snatched Philip away, and the eunuch no longer saw him, but went on his way rejoicing. But Philip found himself at Azotus, and as he passed through, he kept preaching the gospel to all the cities until he came to Caesarea. Now, brethren, what is the difference between this testimony and what Suleiman is saying? Did you see any breach of any regulatory security laws here? Did you see anything like that? No. Now, Philip, if for example I'm preaching the gospel here in the UK, I want to give you an example, and God, by his miraculous deed, snatches me away from here to Scotland, which is part of the the United Kingdom, or he snatches me from here to another city like Northampton, and I'm found there preaching. Of course, there's nothing wrong. So what these people miss, and why they keep twisting the truth, is that they use a truth to try to validate a lie. You see the problem here? So our contention is not that God can do what Suleiman said God did in terms of snatching him away, like they're comparing with Philip. The contention here is the illegality associated with the claim. All right? It is the illegality associated with the claim. So it is not a situation where this guy's life is threatened in a country and he's about to be killed for unjust reasons, and God has sent him to preach the gospel, and then God now whisked him away from that country to his own country or something like that. This is somebody who claims that God had a message for them in France. Are there no preachers in France? Or the message is so important that you cannot give the message over the air, or even if you have to be there. So one has to now explain the purpose behind that miracle if you really understand the way God operates. That is why if you have a discerning spirit and you have the Spirit of God, you can begin to tell testimonies that are true or false. So you have to ask yourself the question, what was the end goal of that testimony? What was the motive? What was God trying to achieve by that? When you look at Philip, we can understand. You understand? We are not told that Philip was snatched away from a territory where he was legally there to a place where he needed the authorities to grant him permissions to come in. We're not told that. Now, and like I told Jedediah, let's even assume that God did that because he brought on the issue of an angel. That, okay, if an angel appears in America, is that not illegal? Why would God send an angel to America when the angel doesn't have visa? But that's silly again because, like I said, that's comparing apples and oranges. The world we live in is governed by physical laws. When the government give all these laws, they are dealing with physical human beings who are subject to human laws. if an angel appears in America, it will be like an alien appearing in America. The American government, if for example an alien appears in America, will not be asking how the alien came in without visa, because the American government understands that this is an extraterrestrial body not subject to our human laws. You see the difference there? So even if God, let's assume, because he's above this, were to bypass the natural laws to do that, you would see that it will bring glory to his name. And rather than the government authorities, question the integrity of that God for promoting fraud, they will glorify him. So that is one thing we need to understand. So you see, in the case of Philip here, Philip was not snatched to another place where God did not permit it, where he wasn't permitted to go. He wasn't. All right. Now, and Jedediah, please also realize that this conversation or discussion is not just about you, in the sense that you're not the only person making an argument. People have, so I'm addressing arguments broadly based on what others have also said. So don't think that anything I say is a response to what you have argued or you have said. The reason why I said what I said is, do you always need a ticket to fly? Jedediah, please, we are addressing, you like distracting comments a lot, making comments that are just distracting. We are addressing something in the context of a specific claim. A specific claim. Yes, if you don't need a ticket to fly, there has to be an explanation. Are you part of the cabin crew that has an arrangement with that ticket, with the airline or something? So it still goes back to my point in that if you are an exceptional person, there has to be some provision in the law that grants you that ability. But you cannot just be some nobody, isolated person in Nigeria, and they just say you enter the airline simply on the basis of the popular preacher says he is with me. So Jedediah, stop distracting this broadcast. Address the specific context of our contention. We are addressing specific claims, and we need to deal with the issue based on those specific claims. Okay? So you see that in case of Philip, it wasn't said he was taken to another place that he needed permit or whatever. In this case, Suleiman is claiming that God encouraged a person to bypass security. Then he sneaked that person into France illegally because he's God. So the question is, the God that is able to do that, is he not able to secure a visa for this guy? Is this God not able to help him get a passport? Is this God not able to help him with a ticket? So this is why I would say that when people are giving testimonies that tend to circumvent the good laws of the land. Now notice I said the good laws of the Lord that God himself has allowed for the purpose of sanity, security, and stabilization. When they are giving testimonies with a claim that God circumvented such good laws, we have very good reasons to question such testimonies. Very good reasons to question such testimony. Now let's go to the issue of Paul and the jailer. Context will help us to understand and discern the spirit behind that testimony to know if it's true or false. In this case, you're going to see that Paul and Silas, they lied. They lied against them. You would see from the story that Paul had cast out a spirit of divination from a woman who was making money for her master. When the master saw that the woman could no longer make money, it was that master that stirred up this false news about Paul and all that, and they went to the authorities, and we're going to read it. So let's look at the testimony. So you see, when these people keep making comparisons, they do so ignorantly, and they don't compare it in the context of what happened in the Bible. They just manufacture their own fictitious story and then plug in a scenario in the Bible and let you see, it happened in the Bible. That's what they do. But Christians, we should be much more discerning by that than that. So I want us to see what happened here. I want us to follow it through. It says here, so you know the story, Paul and Silas. I want to read quickly from verse 38. No, let me read quickly from verse 19. After Paul had cast out the spirit. He says, but when her masters saw that their hope of profit was gone, you see the motive now. We're not talking about somebody who is being persecuted. We're not talking about somebody who there's no pressure, there's nothing to go to preach, then God is just whisking that person to to France, or somebody who is just breaking protocol because the person doesn't have a visa or ticket, just because the person is with the minister. He just says with me. Listen, so it says, but when her master saw, that's verse 19, that their hope of profit was gone, they seized Paul and Silas and dragged them into the market place before the authorities. And when they had brought them to the chief magistrate, they said, see that? They said, these men are throwing our city into confusion, being Jews, and are proclaiming customs which is not lawful for us to accept or to observe, being Romans. Now follow this. Let's go to verse 23. It says, the crowd arose up against them, and the chief magistrates tore their ropes of them and proceeded to order them to be beaten with rods. When they had struck them with many blows, they threw them into prison, commanding the jailer to guard them securely. And he, having received such a commandment, threw them into the inner prison and fastened their feet in the stocks. Listen to this. But about midnight, Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns and praising God, and the prisoners were listening to them. And suddenly there came a great earthquake, so that the foundations of the prison's house were shaking, and immediately all the doors were open and everyone's chains were unfastened. When the jailer awoke, he saw the prison doors open. He drew his sword and was about to kill himself, supposing that the prisoners had escaped. Now, there's something I want you to notice here. There's something I want you to notice there. This experience was evidenced by the jailer himself. The people around, they heard them singing. The earthquake, the people experienced it. So they saw the hand of God. Even though God was breaking protocol, the people could see. That's why I said, you know, when I said before that even when God chooses to break such protocols, it will glorify him. You see how we know? It can't just be that he broke it to show that the man of God is connected with God, or the man's son has a special anointing connected with God. So that's how you know many of these testimonies are lies. A lot of people, you need to have the Spirit of God to be able to discern things. You see that? See the purpose here. The jailer himself wanted to kill himself. Now see what happened here. That's why I said it always gives glory to God. Verse 27, when the jailer awoke and saw the prison doors open, he drew his sword and was about to kill himself, supposing that the prisoners had escaped. But Paul cried out with a loud voice. Notice Paul was still there. Paul did not run away like Bushiri. This is very key. I will explain to you why this is very key to confute the misapplication these people bring here. Paul did not run like Bushiri. He was there. Even after he was freed, he was there. And there's a reason. You see? He says, do not harm yourself, for we are here. You see that? And he called for lights and rushed in. Trembling with fear, he fell down before Paul and Silas. And after he brought them out, he said, sirs, what must I do to be saved? Do you see what I mean, brethren? That even if God were to break any kind of protocol before the authorities, it will glorify him. The people will see a supernatural manifestation that will let them know that this is beyond us. Our laws here cannot stand because the mighty one, the mighty God has come down to show himself. You see the difference here? In the case of Suleiman's case or Idahosa's case, the authorities nobody got, the unbelievers did not see anything from it. There was no glory from it. There was no purpose from it apart from the self-aggrandization that eventually goes to Idahosa and goes to Suleiman. It's false. There's nothing here. But you see the end goal of this testimony here. The jailer, what must I do to? They saw God. They saw the action of God and they gave glory to God. That is the point. Then what? Listen, verse 31. They said, believe in the Lord Jesus and you will be saved, you and your household. And they spoke the word of the Lord to him together with all in his house. And he took them, and that very hour of the night washed their wounds. And immediately he was baptized, he and his household. And he brought them into his house and set food before them, and rejoiced greatly, having believed in God with his household. Now, let me bring something here to fall. At the time this jailer had met with God, he knew there was no more fear. Everybody, they knew what happened. So when the authorities were to come out to them to say, did you let these people go? No, this was what happened. And then there was an earthquake. We saw it. They broke the chain. This was beyond us. It wasn't, and the people who testified, the other prisoners, people who say, this is what happened. Do you get my point? So it is something that is validated before witnesses. It cannot just be testimonies isolated to these people, these self-aggrandizing charismatic preachers that give the testimonies just for their own aggrandizement, without it bringing glory to God in any way apart from themselves. Now notice something. Paul was still in the city. Now there's something I'm going. Paul and Silas did not run. The jailer did not secretly tell them to go. They were still there. What does that tell you? Not like Bushiri. Not like Bushiri. So when these people are giving these testimonies to say, what about the prisoners? The annoying thing about these ignorant folks is that they do not look at the surrounding context of what happened in the case of the Bible, and they do not match it correctly with the fictitious claims these ministers are giving. That's the problem. Now let's continue. This is the interesting part. Now, when they came, I'm reading from verse 35 now. Now, when they came, the chief magistrate sent their policemen saying, release those men. So, you see, the question is this. Because initially the authorities reacted based on false news, propaganda, like they did about Jesus. What Jesus, the false accusations they made against him, did they not crucify him? Yes. But were they justified? No. So God in this case knew that his ministers were accused falsely. And that is why they released them by the morning. They were not tried, because they found out that there was no claim. It was just the initial, gra whatever, that this man that was no longer benefiting from the woman with the spirit of divination that she had. He was the one that stirred up that propaganda and the controversy, and based on that the authorities just acted. But by the morning they sent them to release them. Why? Because there was nothing. If they were really found guilty of something, there would have been an issue. But Paul, what I even want to emphasize is that Paul and Silas remained. They did not run. So they were even willing for the authorities to come and see them where they were. Let them narrate the testimonies to the authorities, and you'll be surprised, like that proconsul who gave his life to Christ when Paul caused that sorcerer to have blindness. You would see how many more people may have been saved. That is what I mean. At that point in time, when they are seeing the hand of God, the authorities are not looking at who is breaking protocol or who is not breaking protocol. They know that God has arrived. They know that God has shown up. So, yes, even if God will break protocol for his name's sake, the context must be understood. Now, listen. Now, when the day came, the chief magistrate sent the policemen saying, release those men. Listen, and the jailer reported these words to Paul. So Paul was still there. Paul was still there. He did not run away. Okay? So God did all these things knowing this. He did not release them so they run away from the city, putting the jailer in trouble, because, they were still there. All right? Listen, Paul even replied and said, but Paul said to them, they have beaten us publicly without trial. You see that? These people don't tell you this, These people, they don't tell you this. They have beaten us publicly without trial. Men who are Romans and have thrown us into prison, and now they are sending us away secretly. Why? You see, because the authorities knew that they did wrong. You see that? So when these people are saying God breaking protocol, God is just. He knew that his men were held unjustly. We're not talking about a thief or somebody like who evaded taxes, like Jim Baker, that was sent to prison for 5 years. Then you say God is going to now break the prison and free him. How will the authorities look at your God? You see, that is the problem with these people. They create this God that is immoral. They have an immoral God that they create. So you mean, like when Jim Baker, for example, or those people stole, because this person is a preacher, then the person goes to prison. Then you say because he's a preacher, God will now break the prison door to release somebody who has evaded taxes. And then when they ask the person, but why did God do that? Well, he's my preacher. He's above the law. God's laws are not humans' laws. Can you see how Christians think? Very annoying. Can you see how they think? That's why unbelievers mock us. That's why they mock us. But in this case, God knew that these men were held unjustly. And that's why it's Paul that was working. Paul was even still there saying, no. You want to send us away secretly. Or you put us in prison without trial. No, and now you want to send us away because you know what you have done is wrong. Eh? No, we'll be here. Let them come. No. You see the difference? He says what? The policemen reported these words to the chief magistrates. They were afraid. Why were they afraid? If they were on the side of the law, why were they afraid? So God had a right to do what he did because he knew that those men were just and they were kept unjustly. They were afraid when they heard that they were Romans and they came and appealed. They were not even begging them. They appealed to them, and when they had brought them out, they kept begging them to leave the city. I beg. We did what is wrong. We're sorry. We didn't try you people. It's just the initial noise we heard. I beg. And you people have a Roman citizen without trials. I beg. They are the ones who were wrong. So these people should stop comparing, making this annoying comparison. Yes, now it's possible. They got not freedom. He broke protocol. Read the context. So when you find out, you see that many of these Christians, they interpret scriptures based on what the devil gives to them. Like he told Jesus, if thou be the Son of God, turn the stone into bread. After all, if thou be the Son, jump down from this place. Then guess what? To the devil we quote scriptures. If thou be the Son of God, jump down from this mountain. After all, it happened in the Bible. After all, he says he shall give his angels charge over thee. This is how these Christians also misapply the scriptures, because the inspiration they get to make these comparisons that are missed don't come from God. They don't have a discerning spirit to discern context. That's why they say these things. They just throw anything. It happened to Philip. So you see, yes, it's possible. It happened to the prisoners here. Yes, so yes, what is wrong with that? They are not looking at the specific context of what happened in the Bible and comparing it with what the claims of these self-aggrandizing charismatic pastors. Yes, Jesus, that's why Jesus responded to him. If it's many Christians today, they would have jumped down from that cliff, as Satan told them to do, because they want to also prove, yes, it is written, Jesus, you shall be by me. That's how they said lion ate that man, because he was trying to prove Daniel. It happened in Daniel. It's possible. Let me go into the lions then. That's exactly what these Christians are doing. But you see, what do we see here? They went out of the prison and entered the house of Lydia, and when they saw the brethren, they encouraged them, departed. At the end of the day, God. So what do we see from this second testimony? Number one, these Paul and Barnabas were God's genuine servants, not these charlatans and self-appointed pastors we see today that just pastorpreneurs that build worldly carnal empires, branches, and their franchise, and they're comparing them to Paul and Silas. These are men of God. Do you know men? Are you comparing those people with these genuine men of God? Number one, these were genuine men of God. Number two, they were unjustly held in prison. So God had a right, if he wanted to break that prison doors open. Secondly, he still kept them there. Just to show that, God is not a mago God. He's not playing hide and seek. Yes, I broke the prison and they're still in your city. Come and see them, they are here. They didn't run like Bushiri. They didn't. The jailer got saved. And I'm sure the jailer will live to tell that testimony to the authorities. When they say, they already released them anyway by the next morning, so it wouldn't have made any difference. If the authorities were right, why did you not say the jailer, oh, you mean you released these people before we told you to release them? You mean to take them back to the prison? Rather, they were begging. God, who sees the end from the beginning, already knew. He left. So people should stop. So yes, God, when laws, and this is why I want to share to the last part before I round up now, because almost time to go. I'll soon be preparing to go pick my kids. I want to use this last part to tell you that I don't believe that God will break lawful human regulations that he himself has instituted for the common, has allowed and instituted for the common good of the society, just to perform a miracle, when there are other ways he could have also done that. That's number one. And I'm going to read this verse of scriptures, and I'll explain why. And then secondly, the caveat is this, that even if he chooses to do so, it will be something that the authorities will see, whether now or ultimately, that will bring glory to his name. It cannot just be a story for the self-aggrandizement of the minister or the person in question to show I am connected. So these are two things I would like to share with God's people. Keep that in mind. First of all, ask yourself, what is the purpose of this testimony? Who is glorified in this testimony? Is it the Papa just showing that he has a special connection with God? Or unbelievers have seen the gravity of this testimony and they glorify God? You see the whole thing? So even such breaking of the protocols as it may seem has to be something where God is establishing his sovereignty to the glory of his name and not to the self-aggrandizement of the preacher. Bear that in mind. I love giving the testimony of William Branham. I love him so much. He had his faults and his errors, but he's somebody that positively, I don't care about what the cults and all those the Pentecostals say about him. They always try to demonize him before people and say he was, but I know how he influenced my life practically with the godly life he lived. So that is why I keep giving testimonies with him. It's not because I want to idolize any man. The Congressman Upshaw, who was healed in William Branham's ministry, is not hidden. It wasn't William Branham that was going about spreading and blowing his trumpet. Go online, it's there. It is Upshaw himself, crippled in a wheelchair with crutches for 50-something years. So it's not some unknown person. I heard Idahosa was with this person. He said he's with me. No. The testimony is verifiable. Go online. Congressman Upshaw, the Upshaw himself has given his testimony. It is on YouTube. It is there. He's the one telling what happened. That is what I'm talking about. That is not it's not William Branham going around and say, oh, so the day, this is the day. Yeah, William Branham has given that testimony of what happened. But the point is that there are witnesses to it. Everybody knows the congressman. He's a known congressman in the US. People could see that he was now walking. That's the point I'm trying to make. So even if William Branham gave the testimony, you can ask, oh, where is Upshaw? I want to see this man. And you can see him. He's there. But if you ask Suleiman, I challenge you today that Suleiman, go and produce this guy that gave this testimony about toilet teleporting from Germany to France. Let us interview him and then see what will happen. Ask this other brother who said Idahosa told this went through all security from UK, from Nigeria to the UK to the US and back to Nigeria. All Idahosa kept on just telling everywhere he went through security was, he's with me, he's with me. And as he just told them, he's with me, they just opened the doors. It's that they went to UK. As he went to immigration, Idahosa just said, he's with me, no passport, no visa. They allowed. Ask this person to bring, the person said it's in Abuja. Yeah, Pastor Daniel Doe is the one that gave that testimony. He's called his name, I can't remember his name. He says it's in Abuja and he said, okay, I want to interview him. I want to find out the details of that testimony. He says it's available. Please contact him and say that we've heard about this testimony. We'd like to question you further. Let's see, and then we'll see. Now, in rounding up, I want to explain why I just made the statements I made about why I don't believe that. So I'm not looking at comments now, so in case you're saying anything, because I'm trying not to be distracted and I'm rounding up. So I could look at that after I read this verse. Now, so why do I say that I don't believe that God will break protocols that are regulatory laws that he has allowed to manage the society for its own good. We're not talking about laws where they are forcing you to do something that's unchristian. Now, so that's why I'm being very careful. Let's look at what the Bible says. This is God himself. This is the word of God himself in Romans 13. Look at what it says. It starts by saying, be subject to the government. I don't know if you can read that, but it may be small. Let me see if I can make that a little bit big. So you can read with me. Every person is to be in subjection to the governing authorities. For there is no authority except from God. And those which exist are established by God. Alright? Therefore, whosoever resists authority has opposed the ordinance of God. And they who have opposed will receive condemnation upon themselves. For rulers are not a cause of fear for good behavior, but for evil. Do you want to have no fear of authority? Do what is good, and you will have praise from the same. Now, I want to ask you a question. This is why I said Christians need to be more discerning. Will the authorities have praise from this person who apparently got illegally whisked into France without a passport, a visa, no documents at all? I don't know whether I had it, but yeah, he said he didn't have any documents. So it's the same thing like the Idahosa case. All right? So Paul is saying here that God, he's the one who has instituted this. So how will the authorities glorify God if they hear that, oh, do you know that God just whisked the person from Germany? He was at the airport though. He was at the airport. But somehow he entered the toilet and God sneaked him to France. You know, he bypassed your immigrations in Germany and he had bypassed your immigrations in France. Oh, where is he now? Oh, God has whisked him back. God has taken him through the toilet back again. What do you think the authorities will think about that person and that God? That's fraud. Because the authorities will say, but the same God that has the power to whisk him, does this God not know that he was the one that allowed us to have these laws so that we could make checks on people? Because we have some criminals here, we have some people that are terrorists, there are some wanted people. So why would God allow someone circumvent our borders? If this God was a true God and was a God of integrity, would he not rather that, okay, he makes provision for this person to get a visa and a passport? You see what I'm saying? So look at this in light of how these Christians present God to the unbelievers. It's a shame. Verse 4, for it is a minister of God for your good, but if you do what is evil, be afraid, for it does not bear the sword in vain. Sorry, I'm rounding up now. There's someone at the door. I'll be back very soon. Just give me one moment. Let me get the door. Okay, yeah, and I'll be rounding up too, because wifey is a little bit poorly, so I need to also go and check on her as well. But yeah, therefore it is necessary to be in subjection, not only because of wrath, but also for conscience sake. You see that? So how does conscience come in this testimony? I will never be satisfied to give a testimony that God smuggled me through borders without it glorifying God in the eyes of the authorities. Even if it happened, I'll have to ask God. I'll say, but God, because I'm going to appear in the French border with a conscience knowing that the authorities do not expect me to be there. They know that I am, from the point of view of the authorities, I am illegal. Now, my conscience will not allow me. That is what Paul is saying here, for conscience sake. You see what I'm saying? Therefore, it is necessary to be in subjection, not only for wrath, for the fear that, oh, they might catch you or this might happen, but for your conscience. But because of this, you also pay your taxes. For rulers are servants of God, devoting themselves to do this very thing. Render to all what is due them. Tax to tax, tax to whom tax is due, custom to whom custom is due, fear to whom fear is due, honor to whom honor is due. So brethren, we need to have understanding. That is why we should be careful about the people who come to the pulpits to teach. Not everybody is called to dispense God's word with understanding and context, because a lot of these false teachers mislead you with false comparisons. Okay? You see what Paul is saying here? Now, of course, we know that government is becoming more corrupt and the enemy is bringing a lot of laws and things that go contrary to God's laws. But we still know we are talking about general laws that apply in all societies. It's not a matter, this is not same-sex marriage where they are forcing you to say you must. No, these are security laws. These are general laws all societies abide by. These are international laws for the common good for everyone internationally, even for your own security. Okay? Imagine if you were able to whisk someone, they say the God of this person whisks a terrorist into your borders without going through immigration. What hope do we have? If then we are saying all things, so do you think that the UK or France or America don't also have the right to feel secure? So the question is that because this testimony giving about Idahosa or Suleiman don't have any meaningful purpose to the unbelievers in glorifying him, we need to question that apparent breaking of the protocol that is illegal. That is the point I'm making. So nobody should come here and be asking and saying, are you saying God cannot break protocol? Is government law? No, that's not the point. Understand context, understand the essence of what the person is saying. All right? These testimonies given about Suleiman's boy transporting him, it only ends in glorifying Suleiman and nothing more. Nothing more. The testimony of Idahosa telling that boy saying, oh yeah, he passed through all security because he said he's with me. It's all about glorifying Idahosa and making him, magnifying him to be much more of that demigod in the eyes of the people and nothing more. But at the end of the day, look at the jailer. When they saw that, his attention did not even go to Paul. Oh God. His attention did not even go to, oh, how these are men of God. Fear. His attention was directed towards salvation. The God of these people. This your God is great. Sirs, what must I do to be saved? Is that what the French authorities? Did you see someone in the French? This would have made headlines. I would have been happier. Let me tell you the truth. If God actually transported this guy from do the toilet teleporting, and they said, for example, as a result of that, the prime minister was saved. Hey, I will be the first person to rejoice. But my point is that you see, that's how you know these testimonies are lies. The end goal of it is vague, is fictitious, is haphazard. It has no coherence. You can't consistently tell the story. I can assure you, get any of these men and question them systematically. Follow the sequence of their claims. You see, you kata go boss. You see wahala there. Now, how could these two testimonies have been plausible in a way that I will find them believable? It may not be, but in a way that I may find them believable and still glorify God. So let's assume in the case of Suleiman's case that God actually had an urgent message for the Prime Minister of France or the President of France, or people in France, as they claim he had a message. And this person was poor. He could not afford a ticket, which would not have even been the problem, because there are so many rich disciples of Christ that God could have just easily told them, please buy this guy's ticket. I beg help you, go to a visa and all that. He would touch the heart of the person to give him a visa. But let's even assume that he didn't have the money. And let's say somehow, you understand, he was only able to afford the visa. And he went there and he spoke and said he was going to France because he had a message. I believe the sovereign God is able to put it in the heart of the person to grant him that visa. It's not impossible. He's God. Those are the kind of things I would even expect to hear. Okay, now so let's even assume that he had the visa, but he didn't have the ticket, and God tells him, "Don't worry, you don't need a ticket. I'm here to glorify my name." There would have still been a problem with this testimony, but I'm just giving you an example. So, and let's assume that somehow with the visa he went through immigrations, but then again he will still have a problem with the airline, right? Because he will need a boarding pass. Okay, so let's assume, I don't even think he would have been able to go through that part because he will still need his ticket to go past. But I'm just trying to create a scenario where I might have even considered something to the glory of God. And let's assume that, okay, yes, whilst he was in the toilet, after going through immigrations, all right, God chose to whisk him to the to France, just to show that, look, I am the God and I need him to be there urgently. Of course, it's very ridiculous. It's still going to be a funny testimony, but let's just assume that. My point is, if he gets to the UK or France border, and let's now just assume that he gets there, I'm just giving you an example, and then he begins to give, as he's speaking, everybody there begins to hear this guy speak in tongues, and they're hearing what he's saying in French. He's delivering the message to God. He's saying, yes, I did have a visa. I was about to enter the plane, but it was God's will that I come here because because France is really going derailed, and God has a message. He wants to save the people, and the people are hearing this in French, and is whatever. He's saying, look, I did not circumvent your borders. As you can see, this is my visa, but I came here for the purpose to let you see that God is alive, he's on his throne. I'm just giving you an example of something that can glorify God, and then see God is glorified and people are saved. They say, we can begin to relate with the testimony. So my issue is not with the fact that God can teleport somebody. I think people should not get it wrong. The surrounding context of that Suleiman's testimony and that one that has to do with Idahosa is just patently fraudulent. It's false. You see what I'm trying to say? There's nothing that came out of it that glorifies God. Think about it. Nothing whatsoever that came out of it that glorifies God. So, in summary, if you ask me, yes, can God in his sovereignty break some protocols if he chooses to? Normally he wouldn't do that if those laws are laws he has allowed for the security of the nation and for international nations, because he would recognize that he's told us to be subject to them. So why would he want us to break them if he's told us to be subject to them? Common sense. Secondly, the caveat is, if he chooses to bypass them, then the unbelievers will see the essence and glorify God. If the whole breaking of that law is just to come back and show that, man, I show them, they know God, I beat their borders, God whisked me from the toilet, he took me to Germany and I came back, nothing they happened, they didn't know nothing, they know there's a problem. That's fraud. You shouldn't even be, you should be ashamed to be saying that, because you're associating God with illegality and fraud. And that's the point I'm making. The breaking of such protocols should be seen to glorify God. If he doesn't, in the eyes of unbelievers, if he doesn't, like we saw with the jailer, you see that? Yes, he broke the prison. Yes, he went beyond the authorities, and when the authorities, if they came there, they would have seen that there was a power beyond their laws, not mouth. Are you getting me, brethren? Are you following me? So let's receive sense for those who will choose to receive sense. For those who choose not to, it's sad, it's unfortunate if you don't want to receive sense. Keep wallowing in your ignorance. Keep wallowing in that deception, because that's why unbelievers laugh. And what did the scripture say? That's why the scripture says, in this wise, why? The children of this world are wiser than the children of light. Said that because there are many Christians that suspend their brains. They are so emotional and sentimental. Yes. I'm not a cessationist. I believe in spiritual things. I believe in the supernatural. I believe in all the promises the Bible has given. I believe miracles do happen. Can what happened to Philip happen today with somebody? Yes, it's God. God has not changed. I'm not going to restrict God. Can what happened, can God create a scenario where a person doesn't have a visa, ticket, passport, and miraculously within a short time make it possible for somebody to get those documents so that the person can travel legally? Yes, I believe God can do it. But to tell me that a person was trying to bypass immigration because he didn't have documents, he didn't have passport, he didn't have a visa, he didn't have a ticket, knowing fully well that the international law requires him to be identified because they are terrorists, they are wanted people, knowing fully well, but to tell him that God, seeing that he was standing, he was a sick person, they may send him back because he doesn't have valid documents. Documents are for many reasons, brethren. It's not just to say, oh, I want you to go to that country. They are wanted people. They are people that they are looking for. They are terrorists, so they have to protect their borders. So for you to now tell me that God, in order to circumvent that, took a person to the toilet and whisked him to France. He appeared, then the person passed the French immigrations, appeared from outside the toilet and entered France illegally to go and preach. And the preaching there, unbelievers did not testify. Congressman Upshaw's testimony I gave about William Branham, I told you it's out there, you can see it. It was Upshaw, the congressman himself, that went out and has been shouting, giving his testimony. The guy is walking. You see his testimony everywhere, it's there. It glorified God. But in this case, he went to France, came back. We've not told who he saw, the hotel he stayed, what he did, and he came back. Fictitious. In the testimony by Idahosa just told them, he's with me. Explain to us what the immigration officer said to you. We want to hear. When you got to the airline, what did you say when you say you didn't have the ticket? What did they tell you? Did God make the air hostess, the airline people sleep for 5 minutes and then you sneaked in? You see, anyhow, it's fraud. Can't you see? If a person is going to enter a plane without paying for the ticket of that airline, you are saying God is perpetrating fraud. He's encouraging this person to dupe that airline of the money due them. See how Christians reason? See how they're not deep in their thinking? All they just want to hear is a miracle. It happened. It's a miracle. God is possible. It's possible. And that's why when I asked Jedediah just now, when we're talking, give me an example of a case where a president had just arbitrarily said, oh, Oluwole, come from Nigeria. Don't worry. No passport, no visa. Our authorities will allow you. He could not give me any example. Because it's very easy to speculate, make speculations based on fictitious stories. But when the chips are down, where we practicalize it, you see that it's just a fairy tale based on the figment of the imaginations of the people's minds. Brethren, let's be wise. So in answering that question again, because a lot of people, I just felt prompted to address this because a lot of people are quickly going to justify Suleiman's what I believe is evidently a fictitious story. If you say it's not, bring his son, let's question him. I also believe that testimony by that Akimu, whatever they say in Abuja, is also a fictitious one. If you think it's a lie, they said that one is alive too. He's there in Abuja. Bring him, let's question him. If a testimony is true, like the blind man that Jesus healed, he was not hiding it. It was there. The people saw him. Congressman Upshaw, they saw him. I gave an example in modern times. Upshaw is there. He's dead now, but then if you go around that he was there, his testimony is there. Nobody doubted it because the people could see. The blind man, the Pharisees that were doubting Jesus and all that, they saw him. His eyes were open. They said, how? Tell us again. How did this man make you see? So it wasn't the pastor of the blind man going about saying, there was a blind man, hey, I healed him. No. It was there for people to see. And the blind man who responded to them and said, whether he's a sinner or he's not a sinner, I don't know. All I know is that I was blind, but now I see. So, brethren, I'm sharing this so that by the grace of God, it will help us as Christians be more discerning. There are some things that are not chiseled or written in stone, but by the Spirit of God, He helps us understand some things. So, when a person is giving a testimony next time, ask yourself certain questions. Number one, what is the end goal of this testimony? Just in your mind, peruse, just begin to, what is the purpose of this testimony? At the end of the day, is the end goal of the testimony to make people say, wow, this is a great man of God, this man, fear him, or man, you are connected. If that is where the testimony ends and there's no substance, more substance to it, begin to question that testimony. Because God will not share his glory with anyone. He's not a vainglorious God. God is a purposeful God. When he does miracles or something like that, it's to validate a message, the gospel, and to bring people to the knowledge of his son, Jesus Christ. Like we saw with the jailer. So that's number one. Ask yourself the question, what is the purpose of this testimony? Does it glorify God? Or does it glorify the man? In these two cases, we see the glory, it just goes to Suleiman and Idahosa. There's nothing to say that, oh, well, this man traveled with me, I broke protocol, I'm so special. All I just needed to say, he's with me. And they just allowed him. Suleiman's own, one of my sons. So you see, he's a son of Suleiman. Suleiman had to say that to show you that, you see, the son is connected with me, and as such is connected with the supernatural. So don't joke with me. That's where the testimony ends. Testimonies that are genuinely from God's work will cause men to glorify God, will cause lives to change. The authorities, if God even, then that's number two. Then that's number one. Then number two, God will not, under normal circumstances, circumvent those good laws, the laws that he has allowed to bring sanity to the society just because he wants to perform a miracle, especially if there are alternative ways he can achieve that. Even still performing miracles without the need to break the law. God doesn't have to break the law to perform miracles. He could still do it. Philip was, yes, weeks from one place to another. It's like me being weeks from Milton Keynes here to Northampton. It will still be a miracle, but when the unbelievers will see it, they will glorify God, and they will not associate God with fraud. But if I tell them that, oh yeah, I'm a UK citizen, but then I go to the media and the CNN comes around me, now I'm in America, and I'm telling them, oh, how did you get here? Well, I just went to the toilet in the US and I was near immigrations and I saw that I was the sixth person. They may ask me questions and they may search me and whatever, but God just said I should enter the toilet, and then whisked me to the airport in Atlanta, and he make sure that I did not go through immigration. He brought me out to the toilet outside so I can go into the country. What do you think the people will think? They're not going to glorify God. They're going to feel that their borders are threatened. They're even going to feel that I lied, and they're going to interrogate me more. But for me to prove that that testimony is true, like the jailer, God himself will need to do much more. He will vindicate that thing, and there will be a purpose for it. That's the point I'm trying to make. In the case of Suleiman and Idahosa, there's no purpose. It's just self-aggrandizing testimonies. Okay? So let me see. Yeah, I think I've covered the issue of Philip, covered the issue of the jailer, covered the issue of God not being a purposeless God. He does it with a purpose, and even if he circumvents and something that the law has authorized for the good of the society, which I've hardly seen he's done. Even if he does so, it should be evident to the unbelievers and the authorities and people, and they will see that a greater power, beyond their own power, has established something, and then they'll be silenced. They'll quiet. So, brethren, I think I would leave it here for now. Let me see some comments. Jim Wong said the reason why Suleiman lies is because most of his congregations have never been to the airport and do not know how it works. Exactly. I won't be surprised. And exactly, that's why I was so surprised that my friend here was talking like, he lives in the UK, but making speculatory statements that will make you wonder, like, have you traveled before, or do you travel often? How would you be making statements like that? The government, this can just do. No, it doesn't work that way. I was quite surprised, and I would say disappointed, but I love him anyway. I still respect his convictions. Unverified testimonies is what the charismatic preachers use to keep the congregation in perpetual slavery, giving them false hope. That's true. That someday God will teleport them from their poverty-stricken country to a better life in Europe or America. Most of those testimonies are just lies. I agree, they are lies. Most of them are just lies. Most of these testimonies are just lies, imaginary and fictitious stories. It only makes the man telling the story look big in the eyes of the ignorant listeners, and that's true. I agree with you. I seen or shown 100%. I do agree with you. I can't agree with you anymore or less. That's so spot on. Right. So let me see. YouTube. I have there's some comments on YouTube. Unfortunately, I'm sure I wouldn't have time to go through them because time is fast spent. I need to round up and go now. I was hoping this broadcast would just be 30 minutes, but not went beyond 2 hours. Hyson said this has to be, he said there has to be documentation, emergency or not. Exactly, that's true. That's right. Okay, Agbola said Jeremiah is just arguing blindly. Yeah, Jeremiah, you say I have to agree with him. And my brother, I love you, but what he's saying is true. Your arguments are, you contend over issues, I don't know, they could be quite frustrating, but I still love you, my bro. But let us always make arguments in light of the specific the context of what we are dealing with. Okay, let's not just make some general statements. Bennett said Idahosa's story is a fraud. It did not happen. Suleiman's story is a supernatural possibility, but the story is a fraud. That's right, because it seeks to glorify Suleiman. The story is a lie. Oh God, there are people that put on their thinking filters. These are, when I see comments like this, I know that there are people who are thinking, not just thinking mentally, but also thinking spiritually. Well done. Yeah. But said what are talking about here? Yeah. Modupe said nobody's above the law. Okay, yeah. Tochuku Unjoku, maybe I have to take your advice. Say, Brother OJ, please learn to cut off time wasters on the live call. I think I need to do that. Sometimes I just give them time and I don't even know time is going. Yeah, so please, let's be considerate. Yeah, that was 46 minutes into the program. We're already going back and forth. I don't mind the argument or the debate, but it's just that because we had a short time, we that probably won't have been that for that long. So maybe next time we'd actually have a formal debate where such people like Jeddah will be there and will be able to make the points very clearly. I'll be able to ask him questions. He can ask me questions, and yeah. So Ezekiel, if God will break his laws, he has become a man-made God. See, that's right. Please, only within God's nature. God will never go against his nature, no matter what. So. You see, I'm happy a lot of people got the gist of the whole thing. So, yeah, thank you very much. I want to round up here. It's over 2 hours. And God bless you. Please share. If you are blessed by this or you feel there are people you need to, that need to see this to help us as Christians so that a lot of Christians would, be more discerning and give themselves more to understanding. Please share. And if you're blessed by this podcast as well, don't forget to subscribe or on YouTube. On Facebook, you can follow. This podcast, interestingly, is not on Back to the Biblical Faith. I'm doing it directly on my my personal page. Yeah, but you could still follow and you could share so that others may also learn as well. So let me draw the curtain here. I would see you guys very soon. Maybe sometime soon we'll talk about another one. I think another one coming to my mind is about this issue of prophecies and as to whether if a person gives a false prophecy, it makes the person a false prophet. I think I want us to also look at that maybe sometime soon. I don't know when, but I'll just say as God leads. But for now, let me draw the curtain. I'll go pick my kids now and attend to my lovely wife as well. See, she's like, I'm not feeling too good. So I'll see you guys very soon. Take care. God bless you. Peace. One love for me. Love you all. God bless. Bye bye. Bye bye. Bye bye.